Save me a row with the bag. I was hoping you'd step out about
If you do partake in refreshments, please don't bring them into the museum. We can be out in the tent or out in the parking lot. But, we don't.
3rd in 1948, Captain Glenn Edwards recorded in his diary, he said, "What a wonderful day this has been. Got 2 flights off in the YD-49, a lovely flight in the DC-6, and 1 in the C-47. Well, more than 50 years later, those words are still seem terribly appropriate. What a wonderful day this is. 21st day of July 2000, the fulfillment of so many long-held dreams. Though we won't fly here today, we will see, hear, touch the historic test aircraft, artifacts, and stories which chronicle the history of Edwards as a center of excellence for flight tests for the entire world. And we'll do so in a magnificent new facility, so bright and shiny, so spectacularly adorned, so right for this place and the purpose which it will serve. I know it's been a long and sometimes dimly lit road since the birth of the Flight Test Historical Foundation in 1983, but there are perhaps more than a few out there in the audience that thought this day might never occur. I also know that there are many who are just flat worn out from having served far beyond the call of duty, and the Antelope Valley and the Air Force and our nation can be proud of. That this museum exists and is supported and run by the Flight Test Historical Foundation is a testament to the teamwork that is so prominently a part of the character of this great community. You've shown that where there's a will, there's a way, and that the word no just isn't in your vocabulary. You've captured for the generations to come the spirit of flight tests and of those pioneers who've written its story. This museum will stand long after all of us are gone, and will be a tool that will educate and keep alive the excellence and the courage and the self-sacrifice and the sense of duty that is flight test. It will also be a reminder of how truly blessed we all are and have been to be able to participate in a little bit of that history and to have lived and worked here at Edwards Air Force Base. Thanks are owed to so many for making this all real. To those on Team Edwards who put their backs into getting the museum ready for today. To Dave Stoddard and grandson Zach Ullman, and Staff Sergeant Andy White for all their heroic efforts day in and day out, turning an empty building into a place of such genuine fascination. I spoke to Pete and Carol about an hour ago. I caught them on a cell phone as they were pulling into a parking lot of a supermarket in Beaver Creek, Ohio. And I told them, thanks. Thanks for what you've done. Dick Hallion, our Air Force historian, who then, in 1983, was a historian here at the Flight Test Center, couldn't catch Dick, sent him a quick email, left him a note, said thanks as well. That we are thinking of you today as we cut this ribbon. Is the fastest man alive, and the senator from the 17th District of the state of California, former Air Force Flight Test Center Vice Commander, great friend, Colonel Retired Pete Knight. Pete.
Thank you, General Reynolds. Distinguished guests, Joe, Chuck, and Doug. It is a pleasure to be here today on a day that a lot of us never thought would come. 20 years is a long time, and it's been almost 20 years since we thought about the museum and had somebody go forward with the idea of a museum. I was sitting in my office as the Vice Commander of the Flight Test Center here one day, and I saw an airplane
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce next one of the true legends of the history of the Air Force Flight Test Center. A man who is the only man to have flown two different winged vehicles in space. One of them is over behind you, the X-15. The test pilot emeritus, currently serving at the Air Force Flight Test Center today, retired Major General Joe Engle. Joe.
Thanks, General Reynolds, Chuck, Pete, and distinguished guests, but more importantly, everybody that's here today. I can't tell you how honored I am to be up here. I didn't know I was going to be up here today, but I'm just terribly honored to get to be part of this, be part of anything here at Edwards. Pete, you've mentioned there's so much history and tradition here at Edwards. It's just awesome. It's unmatched. I think the most important thing to me is that, sure, there are the airplanes that you see out here that flew, and there's the dry lake bed that makes this all possible. But the thing that really makes the history and the tradition and the lineage of Edwards Air Force Base is the people. People who worked on the flight line, who got the airplanes ready, that did all the support. And those are the people that I think we really want to not forget today and really remember to thank them. I must say that there's nothing too long from now. Thanks very much for letting me be part of this, General Reynolds, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much.
And topping the list of those behind me who need no introduction, a man who is as much of the history of Edwards as any man, a man who is a World War II ace, a man who flew in the skies over Edwards for a large part of his career, a man who was the first to break the sound barrier, a man who we all love and I respect as the Dean of the Test Pilot Emerituses of the Air Force Flight Test Center, and a man who we've managed to coax out of retirement to come back with us on the 21st of October to kick off the air show and to participate in the Edwards Open House and Air Show with our Test Pilot Emeritus, General Joe Engle. I'm going to come just to see the arm wrestling match, to see who gets to fly in the front seat of the F-15 and who gets to fly in the back seat of the F-15. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my high honor to introduce our last speaker, Brigadier General retired Chuck Yeager.
General Reynolds. Well, General Reynolds, Joe and Pete and Doug, and to all of you in the audience who are descendants and relatives of all the guys who gave their own to make the Flight Test Center what it is. There are a lot of you in the audience this morning, and I had the pleasure of flying with your grandfathers, cousins, right on down. You know, there was a lot of us that thought that a museum at the Flight Test Center would never be more than a pile of ashes about 6 miles from here with a chimney sticking out of it called ponchos. But it has come to be, and I'm real proud of what Doug and Al and all of those who contributed to the Flight Test Historical Foundation for building this museum. It's something that I've seen over some 55 years of my career flying over the Flight Test Center in Rogers Dry Lake, and it really makes me feel proud. I used to preach when I was working here as a consultant test pilot that never let them name a street at Edwards after you, and never get yourself into a position where they have to call in a pathologist to identify you. And here 2.5 years ago, on the 50th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier in the X-1, I was making my last flight in the F-15, and General Engle, who was then the Flight Test Center commander, informed me about 2 weeks before my last flight that they were going to name a street at Edwards, and I said, BS. No way. Well, they did, and I think that was one of the most proud moments of my life, to see a street at the Flight Test Center, which was started by General Al Boyd and guys like that who were Joe and my and Pete's heroes. To have a street named at Edwards, along with some 40 guys that gave their all to advance technology in the Air Force. And it's a pleasure to be back here. And when I've got to tell you how I was invited to come back and fly on October the 21st. I was down taking my physical last March, and General Ronald sent word down to the flight surgeon's office he wanted to talk to Bud Anderson and myself. So we went in, he said, I would appreciate it if you would come back. Well, he didn't really put it that way. If you would come back and fly F-15 in the open house air show on October the 21st. And I said, well, General Reynolds, I quit on October the 14th, 1997. And after about a 3-second pause, he said, you're not listening. I said, yes, sir. So I get to come back and have fun with Joe Engle and still make Doug a liar in my last military flight. Flying suit in there. He wouldn't give it back to me, so I had to go down and get refitted with a little larger size flying suit for October's flight. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to congratulate General Ronald for doing what he has done since he's been the commander of the Air Force Flight Test Center here, in really raising the esprit de corps and generating the kind of morale and that we had in the old days when we could fly airplanes 3 or 4 types a day if we wanted to, which never happens anymore. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I am really sincere when I welcome all of those of you who had relatives that gave their all here at the Flight Test Center. Thank you very much.
On the line.